Worship Brother Don Kelsey, Paducah, Kentucky, Plains Lodge, Plain City.
Start again.
Nah, it's too late. We're not cutting that.
Well, we're with Plain City Lodge, 449 in Paducah.
There
Kentucky.
you go, Plain City Lodge, Paducah. First time in Paducah, Kentucky, but you've been kind enough to show me around, which is much appreciated. And you're kind to show me your Masonic Temple and Masonic Lodge room, which we're in right now. And I got some pictures up I'll throw some pictures up of it on Instagram, all that good jazz. But thank you so much.
Enjoyed having you, really did. I'm looking forward to seeing you tomorrow at our barn raising degree.
Yes, that's what I wanted to talk to you about, because I think I discovered it through Facebook on the Beaver Lodge Facebook page. I'm a Canadian Mason. I've never heard of a barn raising, either the normal barn raising or in this case the Masonic context of it. So tell us a little bit about that. What is this event? How long have you been doing it? And just tell us what a barn raising is.
Okay, in Kentucky you have several different kinds of, you have of course degrees that are in your lodge. There are several cave degree teams, some that are hollow, down in a hollow, as we call them. Then there's a lot of outdoor degrees. There's a stadium degree. And we have, so far as I know, the only barn degree in Kentucky. And it's a for real barn where cattle and feed and everything was stored at one time. It's not so much today, but it is on a farm. And other than that, it's just like any other degree, although we probably play it up a little more than normal. We have the full form people come in from sometimes 3 and 6 hours away to do the work, and they really enjoy it, and we enjoy having them. And we'll have, I've heard that tomorrow we may have 200-300. I don't know if that's the case, that might not be, but we always have 100, 120 that'll show up, and it's a really good event. And we'll do the first section, we'll break, and then one of our lodges in our district, they do a big fish fry and have a big feed, and then we'll come back with the second.
I mean, you are the worship master this year. What's it been like to organize this event? I can only imagine.
Well, it's been kind of hectic. I can't go through point by point because I would take up an hour, but just getting the lodge paraphernalia out to the barn, which is about 15-20 miles from here. And then on top of that, then you've got to have all your working tools and paraphernalia that just pertain to the third degree. And then there's some paperwork, we got to be ready to read our letter of dispensation. We got to have our charter moved. We had to get permission from the most worshipful to do that. It's just a lot of logistics. And what about the people coming in? Well, they're missing one part. So I've got to contact somebody else in our district. Can you do Zerubbabel, or can you do Belchat, whatever, one of the other of the 15, can you do just a lot of different things. So it's been, I won't say a nightmare, but close to it.
How long has your lodge been doing barn raisings for?
We've been doing it, I'm going to guess 8-10 years, something like that.
I mean, do you recall, or when you started doing barn raisings, were you a member of the lodge?
Yes. I think I was a member here at that time. I've been a member of 3 different lodges. I was raised at 127, which is, as the crow flies, as we say in Paducah, as the crow flies about 9/10 of a mile from here. And then I moved to 707 in Granville, which is still in this county. Then I've come here about 10 years ago.
Now, when the idea of a barn raising was first discussed or brought forward in lodge, do you recall the conversation around it? in terms of, was there any trepidation from the lodge about how to organize the event? Was there excitement? Like, what was the initial reaction to the idea of a barn raising?
Everybody was on board with it. Everybody wanted to. Of course, we got to always get the Grand Master's okay that you move and do any work or opening of a lodge at a different site. So we got to get his okay. But it's become an institution now. All of the Grand Line comes down, and we have people come from Arkansas, Illinois, Missouri, Indiana. Well, in this case, we got a brother coming from Canada. So
Windsor, Ontario,
yeah.
Canada.
So we have them come from all over to this, and they enjoy seeing a Kentucky degree, which differs a little bit from some of the other surrounding states.
Now, I kind of want to drill down on this a little bit more, because one thing that really concerns me about Canadian Freemasonry, at least as far as I've seen, is, and I just speak for myself and I'll speak for Grand Lodge, is there can be, when a new idea is brought forward, there can be a lot of trepidation amongst the membership. There can be a lot of times people can go right to the negative of what if it doesn't work, and it'll be a lot of difficulty and challenges. And it seems that oftentimes the Canadian lodges in Ontario that I've been to, that I've visited, seem incredibly nervous about trying something new and trying something different. So going back to that excitement you talked about and everyone being on board when it was first put forward, the barn raising, what do you think was the reason for that initial excitement and people being on board, and what would you say to other lodges who are considering trying something new or different?
Well, although the barn degree was rather unique, it's not like it was totally unheard of. Like I said, there are cave degrees in Kentucky. There's several outdoor degrees, and that's in also neighboring states. I've been to 3 other states that have outdoor degrees. So it's really not that much different. It's just in a barn. But just because it's in a barn and our altar may be a big, one of the big whiskey barrels or something with the thing, it's still done in the same decorum and reverence. Don't ever think that we're just going to hoot and nanny it up. No, it's still very serious, and it's done with respect to the ritual and everything. It's just done in a barn, and people are a little more lax in their. We may have people show up in bib overalls instead of where they normally in lodges would be in a suit and tie, or at least a tie or something. They may come, as I look here, kind of very casual on that, but otherwise it's just like any other degree. But it's something different, and it draws a lot of people in, and it's just enjoyable. You'll understand that tomorrow. And if you ever want to do something like this up in Canada, and you want to present it to one of your 2 lodges, I think you remember 2 lodges, have them contact our Grand Master, any of our Grand Masters, past, present, or the one to come, and let them get a feel of it, and they'll give you good marks on it. We don't. Some people want to come because I got to be careful what I say here, so I don't give away ritual things that I'm not supposed to say. They think that we want to see a Kentucky third because we heard that they're a little different. Well, we don't. It is different, but we don't go overboard. Let me just say, and brothers that are watching this know exactly what I'm talking about. We don't. Everybody still leaves living.
Well, that's good. That's good to know. So, Mom and Dad, you'll see me again. The barn raising, barn degree, and cave degrees, I want to talk a little bit about this from your perspective as a worshipful master and having to organize everything. The candidates themselves, the soon-to-be Master Masons, is there, do candidates ask, perhaps if they're eligible for 3rd degree, do they ask to wait? Do they want to get it at the barn degree? Is there a lot of excitement from the candidate's perspective?
This year we would have had 3 candidates, and we would have had some excellent brothers from Cave Country degree team, the other side of Bowling Green, which is 3 hours, 3:15 away. And they come in most years and do it. This year is a little different, that we're going to have past Grand Masters do all of the first, and then we got, of course, we'll still have some Grand Officers, but we'll have some of the Scottish Rite guys in Louisville, which is still, that's 4 hours away, are coming in to do the second. And it's a little different from that standpoint. But what was the question? I'm sorry, you're going to have to cut this and flip it.
No, I'm too lazy to cut it. It's all going in. The candidates from their perspective.
Yeah, okay. We had 3 because the Grand Lodge is coming down, and they want to do something else that day also. Because once they get all the way to this, we're at the far west end of Kentucky. So they want to maximize their visiting, and they'll want to do something else in the evening down here. So they don't want it to drag on. So they only wanted us to have 1. So we had 3. So they talked among themselves, and one of them said, I'll be the barn degree candidate. So that worked out good, because otherwise I was going to throw 3 marbles in a thing and draw them. That's the way it would be. But usually we have 2 and 3, and sometimes we have some coming from other lodges that would do. And they like it. They get them a T-shirt and a little pin that says, I was raised in a barn, which is kind of clever, you know. But
I'm buying one of those shirts for sure. I think that's genius. That is a very, very smart idea.
And you talk about, I don't want to take all the credit for organizing this, not at all. We have our district deputy of District 1. He is the one, him and his wife, or their family owns the land and the barn and everything that's going on. So without them, we couldn't do this. Lloyd, the senior warden, Lloyd Kelsey, him, as well as Bill Copeland, our junior warden, have worked just round the clock, hauling stuff, getting stuff ready, getting things set up out at the barn. I mean, they've done, it's phenomenal what they've done. And then we got people on the other end working as liaisons on talking to other people. What do you have this? Do you have that? What do we need to bring? You know, that kind of a thing. Harold Bubba Johnson, who's running for Grand Junior Warden this year in our state. He's one of the 2 candidates running, and he's been very helpful. So it's not just me. I don't want to act like
Well, it's a team effort for sure, right?
Yeah.
And that's true for anything in Freemasonry.
Yeah.
Can't do anything without your team. Can't open a lodge, can't close a lodge, can't put on a regular degree, let alone a barn degree.
I'm very lucky in this lodge that we've got just great brothers, not good brothers, great brothers. You know, you hear a lot of times we take good men, make them better. Boy, they made some really good ones here. But the thing is, you know, I've visited 160 lodges so far in my life. I'm shooting for 200, and after I get there, I know I'll keep going. And that's not chili suppers or ham breakfast. That's tiled openings and no duplicates, you know, each. So I've met around 3,000 different Masons, approximately. That's just an estimate. And it's more than the number of lodges. That is the important number. And every lodge I've ever sat in, and I hope people feel that way when they come to visit us. Every lodge I've ever sat in, and if I ever make it up, and I do hope to come up to Windsor and visit you, I'm sure it'll be the same there. I will feel as at home in that lodge than as I do in my own.
You will be welcome for sure. We'd love to have you. I don't know if any people are listening closely to this might have caught. You know, you mentioned your brother's senior warden, Brother Kelsey, and I mentioned at the start of this.
That's my son.
Your name, Brother Kelsey. Now, you know, I come from a great Masonic family. My dad's a Mason. Both my grandfathers are Masons. We've got some great-grandfathers in there. My dad was present when I got my 3rd degree, and he sat in lodge with me.
Yeah. Same here.
Vice versa. But we're different jurisdictions. I've never actually, you know, been an officer with my dad, or been in the lineup with him. What's it like having, not just having a son as a Mason, but having him I guess he's next in line too. He's your successor to the.
Well, God, the
Theoretically,
lodge
obviously
willing,
lodge votes, yeah.
he'll be the next master. But I've loved it. My son has been everybody brags on their kid, but he was a great kid growing up, and he's a great man now. And I was just thrilled when he finally came into lodge. I mean, of course, you never ask somebody to join, but once he did, I was just tickled to death that he decided to become a member of the fraternity.
That's well, I was an only child. I wasn't even my dad's favorite. So, but
You talk about my son's a Mason. I'm a Mason. My father was a Mason, and my grandfather was a Mason, but they were members of Halfway 852. That's the other side of Bowling Green. It's a little country lodge, and a great bunch of brothers. I mean, you'll meet some of them. Some of them already told me they were coming, and I'll introduce you to them. And they're very well spoken. You might want to interview them because they might do better than some of the others.
I'd love to have as many as I can.
But they're a great bunch, and they made me an honorary member. So, and they come down to when I had my installation. Had I think 4 of them did. A 5th one wasn't going to come, but had some problem because of his work and stuff. But I went back up there with Brother Ricky Tyler. He's a member here and Bardwell 499. And we went down there and we snuck the stuff in and everything. And the master was going around and said, "Well, anybody have anything to say?" And I go, "Yeah, I do." I said, "Worshipful, could I say this out there by the altar?" And he just looked at me with a puzzled look. And I said, he goes, "Yeah." So I went out west of the altar and I said, "Could I have," and I called them out one at a time, "would they meet me down here?" And I called all of them first, and then I asked for the master. I said, "Would you step down?" Of course, I had to do him last so that he had somebody come up to sit in the east while he did it. They still have no clue. And I had Brother Ricky Tyler, who made the trip with me, come out there with a little folder kind of a thing, and had all these. They had not only the seal, but the silver thing. I mean, it's a really nice looking certificate. And they were mounted in glass, a little thing that you could put on the wall or put on your desk or whatever. And I gave it to him, and he read it, and man, it was really eloquently written. And then and only then did they realize that I was making them honorary members of this lodge, which we don't give them out. I mean, we don't hand them out like candy like some do. We're very particular, but it was unanimous in this lodge because they come down and do the 3rd degree at the barn nearly every year.
Very cool.
So, and they come down. I mean, and I just absolutely love that lodge. And also, that was the lodge of my father and my grandfather. So,
well, I can't end this interview without asking you about your father, because he combines. This is a very cool thing I discovered. He combines my 2 favorite things: professional wrestling and Freemasonry. Your pops was not only a Mason, not only a great man from everything you told me, but also a professional wrestler from Kentucky.
yeah.
Was he from Kentucky, or did he just wrestle in Kentucky?
He come from Halfway, Kentucky. Of course, that's where he grew up, and I lived a little bit of my early life there, but I was born here. But he started wrestling, I think, probably about the time that he'd come to Paducah, and he wrestled all across Kentucky, which is a pretty good ways. I mean, from one end to the other. But he was up in the hills and of the eastern Kentucky, and then around here, and over in Illinois, down in Nashville and whatever, and he did a lot of TV stuff and everything. But a lot of this was the 50s when he did this. So it wasn't like today with the TV the way it is now. You got 1,000 channels. He only had 3, and certainly didn't have the big federations like that. But he was really ahead of his time in some ways, in that he was,
What was his what was his name? What did he wrestle as?
he wrestled under the name King Cobra. And I'll send you some pictures of this. He has a big sequence down, all the way down, floor length thing, and on the back it's got this cobra in different colors, but it's all gold sequence, hand done. His boots or wrestling shoes, whatever, they had snakes up the side of them. He had these, of course he would take them off right before, but he would walk out and he would have, there was these snake bracelets kind of thing that curled up on one side and went back around. I don't know where he found them. And snake earrings. I mean, he was total snake. And I think he had something on his trunks also as well. He was the bad guy. And that's what he liked. He liked whipping the crowd up into anger. And there have been several times that somebody would pull a gun in the eastern part of Kentucky and put it and said, don't treat my cousin that way. So I said, what'd you do? He goes, well, next time he took a swing, I went down for the count. And then there was one time he would take a little razor that just had a little tip out, not much, and he would grab his head, but he would cut right into a little wrinkle or whatever. And he said it really didn't hurt, didn't do any damage. He said, but you would bleed profusely. And he said, had this one woman said, that's ketchup, that's ketchup. So he goes, and she was out there with a big fur on, and he went over and shook his head. He said, go home, wash that ketchup out. And anyway, they hated him a lot. Said, and he would walk through the crowd as he was walking back out, like you dirt, But that was all part of the act. I mean, if you knew my dad, they called him, a lot of people said he was just a gentle giant. He was the most lovable guy that you would ever meet. Not a bad bone in his body, but that was the act and everything. He said he would close the door to go into the dressing room just before one of those big metal chairs hit it. So he liked, and he would have to, sometimes they would have to sneak him out of a stadium because people were lined up ready to kill him. I mean, he done his job good.
How long did he wrestle for?
I really don't know. A lot of that, he kind of stopped that when I was a little child, so 7, 8 years, whatever. He's in a magazine called The Wrestling Eye, an old thing. I think Hulk Hogan's on the front, and they got a feature inside.
Did he? I'm terrible for. I don't know near as much of the history as I should. In the 50s, did he wrestle under any of the AWA? And did he ever wrestle under any of the alliances or federations, or was he primarily independent? Or?
No, he did. He was signed by some federation of some sort. I don't remember or know, but I might be able to find it. I don't know that. And he wrestled against the names of the day. I mean,
what are some of the big names you mentioned?
Well, the only one I can really think of right now there was a Jackie Fargo, and I think he was younger, and he went on past when my dad retired out of that. But there was other names, I hear them, but I don't really remember. Gorgeous George. I don't know who that is.
That's amazing. If you're right, that's.
But he wrestled against a bunch of people like that. My dad was as close to becoming as a Renaissance man as you could, because he could paint. There was nothing he couldn't do, and he had an interest in everything. His only failure was probably he loved music, but he was kind of tone deaf. But other than that, he was a Renaissance man. You'd be surprised at everything that he did and could do.
Was he, Gorgeous George, that's a name, right? That's one of the all-time greats, Hall of Famer. Your dad, the King Cobra, is he, you mentioned he's in a wrestling magazine with Hulk Hogan, his bracelets, is that stuff still floating around? 8x10s of him.
We still got all of that. He had a short jacket, and he had the big long one, and that's family heirlooms. We're never going to lose them. We still got those.
That's very. I'm gonna look them up for sure. I'm sure there's stuff that's been floating around. I know you mentioned only the 3 channels, but ever, to your knowledge, did he ever find himself on TV locally or?
He was on, especially out of was it WSCN or what now was it? Out of Nashville. They broadcast a lot of it, and you could see him on TV.
Did he ever go outside of Kentucky? Did he wrestle in Nashville?
Yeah, he did Tennessee, and he would do other surrounding states, in Southeast or whatever. But it's not like today, not the big tour kind of a thing. Because when he wasn't doing that, he still had a day job. He was an embalmer for 38 years with Lindsay Funeral Home. So. I don't know, maybe that's an odd combination, but.
No, that's, well, I mean, Undertaker was made. Paul Bearer.
Yeah, that's true.
The, gosh, just thinking though about to have been a fly on the wall, some of those stories, you know, not that, I mean, I love modern day professional wrestling. I think, you know, we have some of the greatest athletes in the world. Josh Alexander, I think, might be the best wrestler working today. But, you know, to have seen King Cobra, you know, had people pulling guns, riots, chairs being thrown. I mean, you don't see that anymore.
That wasn't staged. That was real.
You had to be,
you know.
I mean, you had to be pretty tough to be wrestling and have a gun.
He would just make everybody act. He was in a tag team he told me about once, and him and his buddy, they were both equally evil guys, and they whooped up on the local.
Do you remember the name of his partner?
No, I think I've got a poster at home that might have it on it. I saved some of that stuff. But they finally whipped the other guys, and they threw him out of the ring. Then he turned and looked at his partner and threw him out of the ring. And then the ref is up there like, oh no. So he threw the ref out of the ring. He was hated that night. So his job was well done, you know.
And
he had a big following. He had fan clubs and stuff. I mean, he was big in his day, you know.
To your knowledge, I don't know if you know this, was your father, did he become a Freemason, and was he active in lodge while he was a professional wrestler?
Yeah.
Okay. And
actually before he was.
Okay.
Yeah, he come in, I think, pretty early, probably 21, 2 or something, I don't know.
Did he, to your knowledge, did he use, like being able to travel, obviously not like we have now, but when he was traveling for shows, would he also visit Masonic lodges at the time? Was he able to combine them, or?
I don't know. He never spoke of that. I know he did visit other Masonic lodges, but I don't know if that was in conjunction with traveling with wrestling. I don't know.
Because it'd be so fascinating, you know, Saturday night, a whole bunch of Masons are at the wrestling show, they see King Cobra being hated, and then the next day, you know, he's in lodge with them. It'd be kind of a fun thing.
Yeah, maybe he should be third base in third degree.
There, well, yeah.
No. He never held an office in lodge. We have another lodge here. It's 127. Like I said, it's about 9/10 of a mile in a straight line from here. And I was raised in that lodge, and we were voting on something. And my dad was there all the time. He was regular there. And they asked the senior deacon has all voted who's eligible. He normally would say, all save myself, cast your vote and whatnot. He goes, well, Lloyd Kelsey, which would have been Lloyd Kelsey Sr., said, he hasn't voted. And the master and all the other members there looked. The master says, Lloyd, you've got to vote. You know, you're in here, you by law, you have to vote. He goes, I got to be a member here first. And they go, you're not a member? Because he had been there so often,
yeah.
They thought he was a member, and he just never. So he eventually became a dual member with halfway 852 and Paducah Lodge 127. Yeah.
That is very, very cool. You know, I'm going to post this online, obviously. I'm, you know, located in Windsor. Anybody in the Windsor wrestling community, or anybody who watches who loves professional wrestling, if you know anything about King Cobra from, where was he built from? did they bill him from Paducah, Kentucky? Like when he was
Yeah, I believe so, yeah.
King Cobra from Paducah, Kentucky? Throw a comment in, let me know, because I love it when my favorite things combine. And
It might be pretty obscure because, you know, it's not as big as the wrestlers are today.
sometimes people, you know,
But at the same time, it was back in the 50s too, so.
I mean, wrestling was huge in the 50s. You look at the houses that were being sold. I mean, obviously there wasn't the pay-per-view, there wasn't the pay-per-view market and the cable market, but in terms of houses and ticket sales.
Tell you what, he could have, not saying he didn't, he might, or at least he was in their thing crossed, their era, their years. He might have wrestled against The Rock's father. You know, he was
Okay, yeah.
possibly, I don't know that, but
I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, because that would have been near the tail end of your father's career, but it certainly would have been possible. I mean, and a lot of people, I'm sure, came through, right? What was he like? Were you ever around him at a time when he was in character?
only if, of course, I was little.
Yeah.
But no, he never carried that character out like at church or at the funeral home or anything like that. He was just, boy, they knew who he was.
Yeah.
More people called him Cobra than Mr. Kelsey, kind of a thing.
That's I just think that's so cool. That's probably my most favorite thing, I'm sure, will be tomorrow in the barn raising, but getting a chance to meet, you know, somebody whose father was involved in professional wrestling I know you're saying he wasn't a big star, whatever it is, but, you know, that's not nothing. Wrestling out of Nashville, wrestling Kentucky.
Since we're here and we're on thing, I'm sure you're gonna have to crop a lot of my mistakes and stuff. And
I'm not cropping anything.
Oh,
it's all
man,
staying on.
That's not good, because I'm terrible in front of a camera. I know I'm the worst. Not everybody in Kentucky is like me, okay?
You're doing great, I promise you.
But you said that you had wrestled a bit.
Yeah, I'm with, well, I train out of Can-Am Wrestling School in Windsor, Ontario, and I've been lucky enough to do some work as a referee with Impact Wrestling. That's something maybe I'll throw a link up, but that's something I'm very fond of and have a lot of fun memories of. You know, I did an interview with one of the people I trained with, or really one of my trainers, Dan Pisano, wrestles as El Reverso, and I put that on because there's a lot of connections you can make between professional wrestling and Freemasonry. Certainly, I mean, the most obvious would be the secrecy behind it. There are, you know, especially back in your father's day, you know, kayfabe was the term, right? People were very strict about not, you know, making sure that the fans didn't see behind the curtain, and you know, they viewed the heels as heels and the faces as faces. But even the process of training as a professional wrestler, there's a lot of parallels between Freemasonry. Like one of the things I talked about, I don't know if you can comment on this at all, is you know, just the importance of breathing during a degree. So often you'll see, it could be a candidate, but oftentimes it's an officer, somebody doing a bit of work. They're so nervous or riled up about their work, when wrestling we use the term blown up, which before I joined professional wrestling, before I started training, I'd seen it happen a lot. I didn't have the term for it. They would get so nervous and so, you would see them midway through their lecture have to stop and take a big breath and pause, and I realize now they're getting themselves blown up.
Some of the biggest problems and obligations and stuff, people not putting the pause, you know, putting too many words in there for them to repeat or something. It's just little things you learn as you go, and after you've done it a little bit, you get a little more laid back about it. And like I say, we like to keep our obligations, and a few things we want them exact, but some of the others, if you lose it a little bit, just put it in your own words. long as you convey the meaning, that's okay. It's still going to be the best degree they've ever seen.
That's so, absolutely. And it's, yeah, that's such an important thing is
Jumping back to,
keep going.
I just can't let it go without telling this little anecdote. My sister, she's 4 years older than me. When she was little, my mom had her up in her lap at one of the wrestling matches, and this man and his wife was right in front of him. And of course, my dad was the bad guy. So it's to be expected this guy was calling him a SOB and everything under the sun, just cussing him out, whatever. And she would stop that. She was little.
Yeah.
Stop that. That's my daddy. And he kind of like, what? He went on back to getting into the fight. He's following it and everything, cussing my dad again. Stop that. That's my daddy. Well, she had the old Coke bottle, them big kind of half green glass looking thing. It was empty. She hit this guy in the head, just pong, like that. Said it rung all over the state. Everybody, he was like, I saw him. Like, what? And his wife said, well, she told you that was her daddy. Well, I was just coming to enjoy the thing. But by the time he turned around, my mother had grabbed the bottle. So he turned around, he looked at her like she had done it. But, well, it's just a funny family story that we tell sometimes.
It's a great story.
Yeah, maybe. You can cut that one out too.
I'm keeping that one in. I guess your sister will have to field some questions about when she hit a guy with a Coke bottle, but
yeah.
I mean, it's great. I mean, and that's something that's so wonderful about pro wrestling is how people get so into it. I mean, there are stories. Worship Brother Michel Broussard, French guy, don't hold that against him. He, in, I think it was Quebec. Anyways, he was an older fella. He used to go to the shows when he was a kid, the wrestling shows, but I guess he knew an older lady who, she 100%, it was all real to her. And I guess at one point she, 60, 70 years old at the time, in the 60s. At one point, he's whatever looking around, he looks up and she had climbed into the ring and she was cussing out the bad guy for cheating. She didn't have a gun, as was pulled on your father, but I'm sure
my dad would do stuff just to rouse him up. He would, he'd kind of look around, the ref would be looking the other way, and he'd reach in his trunks and pull. Wouldn't have nothing. Nothing. Pull he'd slam into the guy, then he'd put it back in and they would be telling the ref, he's got something, he used something, whatever. And he'd come over, and my dad would have this innocent, like, what?
Yeah.
Kind of a thing. And they knew that he had something, and there really wasn't anything.
Yeah.
It was all part of the show. But, he was a great showman. He really was.
I would have loved to have seen him do ritual work. The showman aspect of it, I'm sure.
Well, he didn't, like I say, he never held an office.
Even without the office.
He just never wanted to. He just was happy to be a brother,
Although even without the office, I mean, there are many pieces of ritual work aren't done by officers in Ontario lodges. I'm not sure.
Oh yeah, well that's the same here.
Yeah, I'm not sure if he might have, even without being an officer, had done some work. Even if not, even to just proved his proficiency, I'm sure it was something to have seen because, again, it's one thing to prove your proficiency. It's another thing to actually put, a level of showmanship and effort into it, and which is always a good thing to do for any candidates watching. Don't just recite the words, right? Make them meaningful. Make everything meaningful. It's another good lesson for professional wrestling, right? Everything you do.
The ritual has meaning. If it didn't, we'd be Lions Club, Moose, or Elk or something, That's one of the things that sets us apart. I mean, first off, we start with good men. And then, our ritual is
I joined, so I don't know how good.
Well, that's kind of the way I look at myself. I set the bar, the low bar. Nobody gets in worse than me.
It's true.
That's kind of the way I look. But the ritual is one of the things that sets us apart from it. And it's not just going through the motions of saying things and opening and closing and initiations and stuff. It all has meaning. And as you go on in years, you'll start realizing different secret or hidden truths, I should say. I don't know if they're hidden, but you just start discovering things that are said, and you go, oh yeah, that's so, and you grow in Masonry. And another thing, I would tell anybody that's listening, get out and visit. You should visit, even if it's just in your own county or district or something. I mean, I've been to 9 states, and like I say, so far 160. And I'm going to continue. I know you'll meet brothers tomorrow that's been to 300, one of them's probably been about 350 just in Kentucky. I don't know, and he's been to Paraguay or Paraguay. How do you pronounce that?
Paraguay, I think.
I don't know. But he's been down there, and some of them travel to other countries and stuff, and I'm hoping that I want to go to England and Scotland. I'm hoping I get to go to both of those. I thought I was going to do it this year, but it might be next year. But I want to go to lodges in each of them if I can.
That would be awesome. I think that those are both very good pieces of advice. Make the ritual meaningful and visit. And if you're doing those two things, you're on the right track.
Part of it's just meeting other brothers. I mean, I can call somebody in other states and tell them I need something or whatever, and if I really needed it, I mean, I'm not going to put somebody, but if I needed it, if I called somebody 300 miles away, they would get in their car and drive to meet me, and I would them too. And you start understanding, I'm not saying all brothers will do that, but you'll have more than not that will try to help you as best they can. If they can't, then they're going to get a hold of somebody else that's down my way and get me taken care of. And it's a brotherhood. It's a fraternity that is not equaled anywhere in the world, without a doubt. Nobody comes close. There's a lot of other good organizations, but nobody holds a candle to this one. That's just a fact.
I agree completely, and that is, I think, a good place to end it, because you still have to get ready for tomorrow, and we still got to go to Cracker Barrel. So
yeah, Cracker Barrel's important. Yeah.
That's very important.
Well, thank you for interviewing me. I hope you interview somebody else so that you get a better face of Kentucky Masonry.
I mean, I can't wait till tomorrow and meeting some of the guys, and I'll definitely take their info. But you were a great interview, and you've been a very kind and accommodating host, and it's been much appreciated. So thank you so much.
I'll give you that $5 for saying that later.
Okay. That's $5 American dollars. That's like, when you give 5 American, that's like 5 million Canadian.